Love can be a beautiful illusion, one that blinds, deceives, and destroys. It can build a person up just as easily as it can shatter them beyond repair. And when trust is betrayed in the most unforgivable way, the fallout isn't just heartbreak, it's devastation. In a cold, sterile prison meeting room, beneath the watchful eyes of security cameras, passion turned to fury, and devotion became a death sentence. It was supposed to be a moment of closure, a conversation that could have changed everything. Instead, it became a crime scene. How does love turn into murder? How does betrayal push someone to the edge? And when the truth finally comes out, does it set you free, or seal your fate forever? Before we dive into this shocking case, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales of love, lies, and betrayal. Shanice Dupree was the kind of woman who made people stop scrolling. Flawless skin, hourglass figure, a smile that could melt ice. She wasn't just an Instagram model, she was the Instagram model. Millions of followers watched her every move, envied her lavish lifestyle, and clung to her words as if they were gospel. She preached about faith, loyalty, and the power of a good man, dropping Bible verses about devotion between perfectly lit selfies and unboxing videos of designer gifts. Her YouTube channel was a diary of the perfect life. Mornings spent sipping matcha on her penthouse balcony, afternoons at luxury boutiques, nights wrapped in the arms of her husband, Jermaine Caldwell. Their love was her brand, and her audience ate it up. Every vlog was a highlight reel, romantic candlelit dinners, spontaneous private jet trips, long, heartfelt speeches about how Jermaine had changed her life. He spoiled her, worshipped her. She called him her king. He called her his queen. Together, they were untouchable. At least, that's what the world believed. Jermaine had been famous in his own right before Shanice ever entered the picture. A rising star in underground rap, his music was a raw, unfiltered look at the life he'd clawed his way out of: poverty, violence, survival. He had lived it all, seen it all. And despite the fame, a part of him still hadn't let go. He was still connected to the streets, still tied to people who didn't live by society's rules. But none of that mattered when he met Shanice. She wasn't just beautiful, she was electric. She made him feel like more than just a hustler with a mic. With her, he wasn't just some street kid who made it big, he was a man with purpose, with something real to protect. So he gave her everything. The bags, the cars, the vacations, whatever she wanted, she got. Their love story played out in public, a modern-day fairy tale with an edge. Fans obsessed over their relationship, called them goals, begged for advice on how to find a love like theirs. But what they didn't see, the things that didn't make it onto Instagram, was the chaos behind the cameras. The fights were intense, explosive even. Jermaine had a temper. Shanice had a sharp tongue. She knew how to push his buttons, and he knew exactly how to hurt her back. But they always made up. He'd buy her something expensive. She'd post a long caption about forgiveness and unconditional love. And their followers would sigh in admiration, convinced that this was what real love looked like: messy, passionate, but unbreakable. Then, everything changed. One mistake. One betrayal. One decision that would unravel everything they had built and send Jermaine to a place where love was nothing more than a memory, a prison cell. And yet, even behind bars, even with his freedom stripped away, the one thing that kept him going was the thought of Shanice. The idea that she was still out there, waiting for him. Loyal. Devoted. His ride or die. But some secrets don't stay buried forever. And some betrayals don't go unpunished. Jermaine Caldwell had lived by one rule his entire life: handle your own. No crying, no running, no asking for help, especially when it came to the people you loved. And nobody meant more to him than Shanice. So when she came to him late one night, voice shaking, eyes red from crying, he didn't hesitate. She was his queen, his whole world, and if she was in trouble, then it meant he was in trouble too. At first, she didn't want to tell him. She danced around it, tried to brush it off, but he knew her too well. Something was eating at her. Something dark. When he pressed, her walls crumbled. She had debt. Not shopping sprees or overdue credit card bills, this was worse. It was gambling. High-stakes poker games held in exclusive, underground spots where people didn't just play for money. They played for power. Respect. And when you lost to the wrong people, you didn't just walk away. She had lost big. And the men she owed weren't the type to send polite reminders. Jermaine's blood ran cold. How long had this been going on? How deep was she in? But none of that mattered. She was scared. That was all he needed to know. He would fix it. That's what a real man did. He went to his boys, laid out the plan. There was a private poker game happening that weekend, big money, the kind of cash that could make problems disappear. The plan was simple: get in, get the money, get out. Nobody needed to get hurt. Just a clean, quick hit. But things never go as planned. The mansion was a fortress, high fences, security cameras, guards at the door. They moved fast, masks on, weapons drawn, voices sharp with commands. The players at the table raised their hands, eyes wide with terror. Jermaine could feel the adrenaline pounding through his veins. Then, someone reached. A flicker of movement, a hand going for something under the table. The gunshot split the air. The man hit the floor, clutching his chest. Blood pooled beneath him, thick and dark. The room erupted into chaos. Jermaine froze for a split second, mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. They ran. The money was stuffed into duffel bags, but it felt heavier than it should. He could still hear the man gasping, see the horror in the other player's eyes. And the worst part? It wasn't even enough. Shanice's debt ran deeper than she had admitted. The money barely made a dent. And before he could figure out the next move, the cops were at his door. The case was airtight. Surveillance footage. Witnesses. Fingerprints. They had him. Shanice stood by his side, at least in public. She wept on camera, called him a victim of the system. She told their fans the courts were trying to tear them apart. She sold free J t-shirts, set up a GoFundMe for legal fees, turned his incarceration into a movement. She promised she would wait for him. And he believed her. Jermaine had spent the first few years inside holding on to one thing, her. The walls of his cell closed in on him, the weight of time pressing down on his shoulders, but he told himself it was temporary. That when he got out, she would be there, waiting, just like she promised. He wrote to her every week. Poured his heart into letters, telling her how much he missed her, how much he needed her. Every call was a lifeline, her voice on the other end the only thing keeping him sane. But then the letters slowed. The calls went unanswered. At first, he told himself she was busy. She had a life to live, bills to pay. He didn't expect her to put everything on hold just because he was locked up. He convinced himself that she was still his, that she would always be his, no matter how much time passed. Then came the whispers. It started with the other inmates. The kind of men who knew things before the rest of the world did. They told him they saw her out in Atlanta, smiling in VIP sections, sitting courtside at Hawks games, laughing a little too hard in the company of another man. At first, he ignored them. Haters. That's all they were. Trying to get in his head, break him down. But then the COs started dropping hints. She ain't writing you back, huh? That's crazy. A girl like that don't stay single for long. You seen what she been posting lately? Damn, bruh. Hate to say it, but she gone. He told himself they were wrong. He refused to believe it. Shanice wasn't just any woman. She was his woman. He had risked everything for her. She wouldn't betray him like that. But then his cousin came to visit. Jermaine knew something was off the second he saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't pity. It wasn't sympathy. It was hesitation. Like he didn't even want to tell him. "Look, bruh," his cousin started, sliding an envelope across the table. "I ain't know if I should even bring this to you, but you need to see it for yourself." Jermaine opened it with steady hands, but the second he saw what was inside, something inside him snapped. Photos. Videos. Screenshots. Shanice. Out in the city, draped in designer, sipping expensive champagne, smiling that same beautiful smile he used to wake up to. And beside her, Maurice M.O. Spence. His so-called best friend. The same M.O. who used to hype him up in the studio. The same M.O. who called him brother. The same M.O. who sat in his house, ate his food, called Shanice sis like he actually gave a damn. Now he was holding her. Kissing her. Living the life Jermaine had nearly died to protect. And the worst part? She wasn't even hiding it. She wasn't ashamed. Wasn't afraid. She was proud. Posting their vacations, their shopping sprees, their candlelit dinners, all paid for with his sacrifice. Jermaine sat in his cell that night, staring at the ceiling, his mind a battlefield of rage, heartbreak, and humiliation. He replayed every moment, every lie, every "I love you" that had been nothing more than a script she had memorized. He had done everything for her. And she had used him. The next morning, when the COs came to his cell and told him he had a visitor, he almost didn't go. He wasn't sure if he could stomach seeing her face again, sitting across from him like she hadn't destroyed him. But curiosity won. So he walked into that visitation room, sat down at the scratched-up metal table, picked up the phone, and locked eyes with the woman who had just signed his death sentence. Jermaine sat across from her, gripping the cold metal phone in his hand. His heart pounded, but his face remained stone. He had pictured this moment 1,000 times, imagined all the ways it could go. Maybe she'd cry and beg for his forgiveness. Maybe she'd deny everything. Maybe she'd tell the truth. But when Shanice walked in, she didn't look like a woman with regrets. She was dressed to perfection, hair laid, makeup flawless, nails done in a fresh set of white tips. She looked more like a woman on a brunch date than someone visiting her incarcerated husband. And when she sat down and picked up the phone, her lips curled into a smile. Not the nervous kind. Not the apologetic kind. A smug kind. "Hey, baby," she purred. "You look good." Jermaine didn't respond. Just let his eyes burn into hers. She shifted slightly, tilting her head, acting like she was confused by his silence. But she knew. They both knew. He leaned forward. His voice came out calm. Too calm. "You fucking M.O." The words sliced through the air, sharp and unforgiving. Shanice blinked. For a fraction of a second, her composure cracked. But then she straightened her spine, let out a small sigh, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Jay. Don't lie to me." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She just sat there, the silence stretching between them. That was his answer. His hands curled into fists under the table, his blood boiling, his vision tinged with red. He had given this woman everything. His love, his loyalty, his freedom. And she had given herself to his best friend. Shanice exhaled, shaking her head. "Look, Jay, I came here because I wanted to do this in person. I didn't want you to hear it from someone else." He clenched his jaw, nostrils flaring. "Hear what?" She hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "I'm moving on." The words echoed in his head. "I'm moving on. Not I'm sorry. Not it's not what you think. Just a cold, detached I'm moving on." His muscles tensed. His breathing grew heavier. She looked at him, her eyes filled with something worse than guilt. Pity. You need to let this go, she continued, her voice frustratingly calm. We were never meant to last, Jay. We had a good run, but you made your choices, and I had to make mine. We were never meant to last. The room shrank. The walls closed in. The noise around him faded into static. And then. Snap. Something inside him shattered. Before the guard had time to react, before Shanice had time to move, Jermaine lunged. His hands clamped around her throat with a force that sent the chair skidding back. Her eyes bulged, her hands flying up, nails digging into his arms. She kicked, twisted, her mouth opening in a strangled gasp. But Jermaine wasn't letting go. She deserved this. She deserved to feel every ounce of pain she had put him through. The sleepless nights, the gut-wrenching betrayal, the humiliation. He wanted her to suffer. To choke on the lies she had fed him for years. She clawed at his arms, her legs jerking violently against the table. A gurgled whimper escaped her lips, her perfect lashes wet with tears. The guards shouted, alarms blared, footsteps thundered toward them. But Jermaine squeezed harder. Her face turned a sickly shade of purple, her movements growing weaker. Then, crack. Her body went limp. The guards tackled him, ripping him away, slamming him to the floor. The metallic taste of blood filled his mouth as a baton cracked against his ribs, but he barely felt it. His eyes stayed locked on Shanice. She lay slumped against the table, her lifeless body motionless. Her lips, once so full of lies, now parted in a final, frozen gasp. And Jermaine? He didn't feel an ounce of regret. The moment the news broke, the internet went into a complete frenzy. Every blog, every podcast, every social media platform, Shanice Dupree's murder was the headline. The headlines were brutal. Instagram model strangled to death in prison meeting room. Rapper Jermaine Caldwell murders wife in cold blood. From power couple to prison killer, what went wrong? Her fans flooded social media with grief-stricken posts, mourning the woman they had idolized. Hashtag RIP Shanice trended for days. Old videos of her giving relationship advice resurfaced, clips of her speaking about loyalty and standing by her man now carrying a tragic irony. Her supporters painted Jermaine as nothing but a violent thug, a jealous, controlling man who couldn't handle rejection. They called for the harshest sentence possible, for justice in Shanice's name. But then, another side of the story started to emerge. Jermaine's fans weren't silent. They flooded comment sections, defending him with a passion just as strong as the outrage. To them, this wasn't just a crime, it was a reckoning. They called Shanice a liar, a manipulator, a woman who played the role of a devoted wife while secretly betraying the man who had given up everything for her. She ruined him. What did y'all expect? This ain't murder. This is karma. She set him up to take a fall, and then moved on like he was nothing. I don't condone what he did, but I understand. The internet war was relentless. TikTok users broke down the timeline of their relationship, analyzing old posts for clues. YouTube true crime channels released hour-long deep dives, monetizing every twist and turn. Celebrities weighed in, some condemning Jermaine, others hinting that Shanice had played with fire and gotten burned. And then, the voice memos leaked. A journalist claimed to have received them from one of Jermaine's cousins. These were private recordings, voice notes Shanice had sent to a close friend. In them, she laughed about how easy it was to manipulate Jermaine, boasted about how he'd do anything for her, how he was so damn dumb for taking the fall. One message hit the hardest. Girl, he really thought I was gonna wait 8 years for him? Please. That money is mine now. The backlash was immediate. Suddenly, the conversation shifted. People who had been blindly supporting Shanice were forced to reconsider. Maybe Jermaine wasn't just a jealous husband. Maybe this wasn't as black and white as it seemed. Some argued that the recordings didn't justify his actions. That no matter what Shanice had done, she didn't deserve to die. But others weren't so sure. She played with his life. He snapped. Simple. This wasn't murder. This was years of betrayal catching up to her. Women love to play victim, but the receipts don't lie. The debate became a cultural war. Was Jermaine a cold-blooded killer, or a broken man pushed past his limit? Was Shanice a tragic victim, or the architect of her own downfall? The court would decide his fate. But the court of public opinion was already delivering its own verdict. Jermaine sat in the cold, lifeless courtroom, dressed in a county-issued jumpsuit, his wrists shackled to the table. The trial was a formality, everyone knew how it would end. The prosecution didn't need to work hard. The evidence was undeniable. Surveillance footage from the prison meeting room showed everything: the moment he lunged, the way he wrapped his hands around Shanice's throat, the way she struggled, her body going limp as the guards tackled him to the ground. The jury barely deliberated. The judge wasted no time. Jermaine Caldwell, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There was no outburst. No pleading. Jermaine didn't flinch. He had already accepted his fate long before he stepped into that courtroom. There was nothing left to fight for. Shanice's family sat in the front row, her mother sobbing into a tissue while her father stared daggers at him, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might snap. They had painted Shanice as the perfect daughter, a devoted wife whose life had been stolen by a violent man. The voice memos didn't matter. The betrayals didn't matter. In the eyes of the world, she was the victim, and he was the monster. Jermaine's own family sat a few rows back, his mother looking smaller than he had ever seen her, his brothers silent, his cousins shaking their heads. None of them had the words. The internet moved on quickly. Shanice became a tragic figure, immortalized in aesthetic tribute posts and old YouTube vlogs where she preached about loyalty. Jermaine became a cautionary tale, his name reduced to a whisper in conversations about what happens when love turns into obsession. The cycle continued. New scandals. New headlines. New social media debates. And behind bars, Jermaine sat in his cell, staring at the cracked ceiling. He didn't care about the trial. He didn't care about the sentence. He didn't care about the world's judgment. He had lost everything a long time ago. Love can be the most powerful force in the world, but when twisted by betrayal, it can become just as lethal. Jermaine and Shanice had everything: fame, fortune, a love story that captivated millions. But beneath the carefully curated perfection, cracks had already formed. Lies festered. Manipulation thrived. And when the truth finally surfaced, it detonated like a bomb, leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. Some say Jermaine was always bound for tragedy, that the streets had molded him into a man who only knew survival through violence. Others argue that Shanice lit the match, that her deceit, her greed, her calculated abandonment pushed him past the point of no return. The question lingers: was this inevitable? Could honesty have saved them both, or were they doomed from the moment they fell in love? In the end, their story became more than just another headline. It became a haunting reminder of what happens when trust shatters, when love turns to hate, when desperation meets betrayal in the worst possible way. If this story shocked you, like and subscribe for more cases that explore the darkest intersections of love, lies, and betrayal.